My husband said he was going to Toronto for a 2-year work assignment. I saw him off in tears. The moment I got home, I transferred the entire $650,000 from our joint account. The next day, I went to the courthouse and filed for divorce. The terminal at O'Hare International Airport was bustling with people. Have you ever stood in front of someone you loved, nodding along, while knowing every word out of their mouth was a carefully crafted lie? Drop a yes in the comments. I need to know. I am not the only one. That is the story everyone is sharing right now. It is clean, it is simple, and it fits into a neat little box of urban betrayal. But my reality was not found in the humid sprawl of Chicago. My nightmare unfolded under the sterile, blue-tinted lights of San Francisco International Airport. And the destination? It was not a 2-year stint in Toronto, it was a one-way ticket to Singapore. The air in International Terminal G felt thin, saturated with the scent of high-octane jet fuel and the metallic hum of 1,000 travelers moving toward 1,000 different exits. Tyler was holding my hands, his palms warm and steady, a direct contradiction to the ice settling in my marrow. He looked at me with those eyes, the same eyes that had watched me build his dreams from the ground up for 5 years. He was talking about synergy. He was talking about a global expansion strategy. He was talking about our future. He looked at me and told me that 2 years in Southeast Asia would fly by. He told me that this project was the final piece of the puzzle, the one that would guarantee us a vice presidency and a lifestyle that most people in Silicon Valley only get to read about in tech journals. He leaned down and kissed my forehead, a gesture so practiced and tender that a bystander would have called it romantic. To anyone watching, I was the grieving wife of a rising tech star, losing her partner to the noble cause of corporate ambition. I played the role perfectly. I let my shoulders tremble. I allowed the tears to spill over, hot and unconvincing against my cheeks. I buried my head in his chest, breathing in his expensive cologne, a scent I had once associated with home, but now realized was just the olfactory signature of a predator. I let out a choked sob, the kind of sound a woman makes when her world is being torn in two. It was the best performance of my life. Because, as he whispered that he loved me, my internal monologue was not processing grief. It was processing data. In my mind, I was rewatching the encrypted chat logs I had discovered on our home server 3 nights ago. I was seeing the pixelated blueprints of a Singapore penthouse that was already leased in his name. I was seeing the face of Stephanie, his so-called chief of staff, who I knew was currently waiting for him in the first-class lounge 3 gates down. Tyler patted my back softly and told me to be a silly girl. He told me to wait for him. He said that when he came back, we would finally put that down payment on a house in the hills, something with floor-to-ceiling windows, so we could look down on the world we had conquered. I stood frozen as he pulled his carry-on away, watching his back disappear through the security checkpoint. I kept the tears flowing until he rounded the corner, until the last visible part of his tailored suit was gone. The second he was out of sight, the weeping stopped. The trembling ceased. The Uber drops me off at our Palo Alto condo, a structure of glass and steel that used to feel like an achievement. Now, it just feels like a high-end evidence locker. I walk through the front door, and the silence is different today. It is no longer the silence of a busy partner out for a late-night meeting. It is the hollow, ringing silence of a vacancy. I stand in the center of our minimalist living room. The air still smells of his expensive espresso and the lingering hint of his sandalwood cologne. I look at the sleek Italian leather sofa and the designer rug I chose for our 3rd anniversary. Everything here was curated to reflect Tyler's genius. Everything was a backdrop for the brand we had built together. Except, we didn't build it together. I was the silent architect. For 5 years, I was the one in the oversized hoodie, eyes bloodshot and hands trembling from caffeine, fixing critical bugs at 3 a.m. Tyler was the one in the slim-fit suit, standing under the warm spotlights of tech summits, holding a microphone and talking about our vision. To the world, he was the visionary. To him, I was just legacy code. I was the stable, functional foundation that had become obsolete. In his mind, I was something to be refactored, something to be replaced by a newer, sleeker model like Stephanie. The discovery happened 3 nights ago. It was a simple server sync, something I had done 1,000 times. But my fingers know these directories better than Tyler ever will. I saw a hidden partition encrypted, but poorly guarded. I broke the key in minutes. Inside was a folder titled Exit Strategy. It wasn't a business plan for our startup. It was a business plan for his life without me. Blueprints for a glass-walled penthouse in Singapore, overlooking the Marina Bay Sands, a digital paper trail showing the secret transfer of our joint AI patent to a shell company. And then the chat logs, months of messages with Stephanie. She wasn't just his chief of staff. She was the person he was merging with. They laughed about how I would never notice. They discussed how my salary had funded the very penthouse I was looking at. I remember sitting in the dark of my home office, the blue light of the monitor reflecting in my eyes, feeling a coldness I can't describe. Most people ask why I didn't scream. Why didn't I throw his laptop off the balcony? Why didn't I confront him the moment he walked through the door? It is because I realized I was living in a house I had built, but it had become a prison without bars. For years, I had been bound by the invisible chain of the survivor. I had been conditioned to believe that my usefulness was my only value. I had been the one making sure his lunch was packed, his meetings were scheduled, and his code was flawless, while I faded into the background. I was the silent investor in his version of family, and he had been overdrafting on my compassion for years. If I had screamed then, he would have pivoted. He would have moved the remaining assets. He would have deleted the trail. So I chose the only rational path. I stayed in the cage just long enough to turn it into a fortress. I allowed myself to be the silly girl at the airport. I stayed silent so I could watch him walk right into the trap he thought he was setting for me. Tyler is currently 35,000 feet over the Pacific, probably clinking champagne glasses with a woman who thinks she has won the lottery. He thinks I am a variable he has already accounted for. He thinks I am at home, weeping over a 2-year assignment. He is about to find out that when you try to delete the architect, you shouldn't be surprised when the entire system begins to crash. I don't go to the bedroom to lie down. I don't go to the kitchen for a drink to dull the edge of the betrayal. I walk straight to my home office and sit at the custom terminal I built with my own hands. I don't open a standard banking app on my phone. That is for people who play by the rules. Tyler thinks I am still following. Instead, I access our joint cold wallet and our vested tech stock portfolio. My fingers move across the mechanical keyboard with the precision of a surgeon performing a necessary amputation. There is no hesitation. There is no panic. There is only the steady, rhythmic click of keys as I execute a sequence I have been mentally rehearsing since I found that exit strategy folder. I begin the liquidation process. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and our holdings in the very tech giants Tyler spent his days trying to impress. These were never our investments. They were the dividends of my insomnia, the literal blood and sweat of 5 years of 3 a.m., bug fixes, and architectural breakthroughs that Tyler took the credit for. I watched the market orders fill in real time. Sell, convert, secure. I route the funds through a series of secure protocols, eventually landing them in a private, offshore stablecoin wallet that I created 72 hours ago, a digital ghost ship that only I can steer. This wasn't a heist. It was a preemptive legal strike. My attorney had already prepared an emergency filing to freeze these assets, citing Tyler's imminent flight risk and his documented attempt to move marital funds into offshore accounts. I wasn't stealing the money. I was securing it in a legal escrow to ensure it wouldn't vanish into a Singaporean tax haven. The progress bar on the screen crawls forward a glowing green line that marks the end of my life as a secondary character. When the notification finally pings, the numbers are absolute $1,300,964.34. The joint portfolio balance hits 0.00. As I stare at that void, a specific memory flashes in my mind. 3 years ago, Tyler's sister was on the brink of financial ruin, drowning in $45,000 of student loan debt. Tyler came to me with tears in his eyes, talking about the sanctity of family. I was the one who wrote the check. I was the one who worked extra consulting gigs on top of my full-time job to make sure we didn't feel the sting of that loss. Tyler never thanked me. He never even acknowledged that it was my labor that saved his sister's future. He just categorized it as my contribution to his family brand. I realize now that my compassion was a luxury they had been overdrafting for years. This transfer is not theft. It is a long overdue refund. It is the final balance sheet of a 5-year merger that was built on fraudulent terms. Anger isn't loud this time. It is clinical. I close the terminal and lean back in my chair. Tyler is currently somewhere over the Pacific, probably showing Stephanie photos of the Singapore penthouse on his iPad, unaware that his exit strategy just became his bankruptcy papers. This wasn't a breakdown. It was accounting. And for the first time in my life, the numbers are finally in my favor. 20 hours later, the silence of the condo is interrupted by the first digital ripple of Tyler's reality collapsing. My phone begins to vibrate on the marble countertop with a frequency that would be frantic if I actually cared to answer. It is a series of pings from Singapore. Tyler has landed. He is likely standing in the lobby of that glass-walled penthouse, trying to swipe the corporate card for a security deposit that is now worth more than his entire liquid net worth. The first message is brief. Olivia, there is a glitch in the joint accounts. Fix it now. I don't reply. I watch the 3 dots appear and disappear as he types, deletes, and retypes. The second message loses the professional mask. I know you're there. If you've touched the capital for the Singapore expansion, you are in serious legal trouble. This is company money. Don't be a drama queen. I look at the screen with the detachment of a lead engineer reviewing a failed test log. I don't feel the sting of his gaslighting. I realize now that our marriage was never a contract of mutual growth. It was a subscription service with me footing the bill while he provided the illusion of a partner. My compassion had been a luxury resource he had overdrafted for years, and today I simply closed the line of credit. By the time the third text arrives, he is spiraling. I will have you blacklisted from every firm in the valley. You will never code again. Transfer the money back to the cold wallet immediately, or I am calling the authorities. I still don't answer. Instead, I pick up my keys and drive to a nondescript coffee shop in Menlo Park. Marcus is already there, sitting in a corner booth with a laptop and a thick manila folder. He is a professional who deals in the kind of high-stakes corporate espionage Tyler thinks he is a master of. He doesn't offer me a greeting or a platitude. He just slides a tablet across the table. He didn't just plan to leave, Olivia, Marcus says, his voice as neutral as a court reporter. He was trying to strip mine the architecture. I look at the digital trail Marcus has uncovered. It is worse than a penthouse and a mistress. Tyler had spent the last 6 months forging my digital signature on a series of intellectual property transfer agreements. He attempted to move the entire proprietary AI patent, the code I wrote while he was at tech galas, into a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. What Tyler overlooked in his arrogance was the work-for-hire clause, or rather, the lack of one. Since I was never an official employee of his shell company and had never signed an IP assignment agreement, the copyright of the core architecture remained with me, the creator. He was trying to sell a product he didn't legally own. He wasn't just abandoning a wife. He was executing a systematic theft of 5 years of my intellectual labor. The stakes shift instantly. This is no longer a civil matter of asset division. This is a federal crime. Tyler is in Singapore right now, likely trying to finalize a deal with investors using a signature he stole and a product he doesn't legally own. He thinks he's the one holding the leverage, but he's actually standing in a house of cards I'm about to set on fire. I look at Marcus and nod once. Initiate the legal firewall, I say. I don't feel a breakdown. I feel a balance sheet coming into alignment. Inside my mind, I am already writing the script for the next reboot. Tyler wanted a legacy? Well, I'm about to give him one that will follow him through every courtroom from San Francisco to Singapore. Tyler is a man who has always thrived on the scent of success, but right now, I know he smells like nothing but raw fear. In a city like Singapore, reputations are built on titanium, and he has just walked into a high-stakes boardroom carrying nothing but a hollow shell. He is desperate. The $1,300,964.34 he thought would be his safety net has vanished into my private offshore wallet. He needs this meeting to go perfectly. He needs these investors to believe he is still the golden boy of Silicon Valley, the visionary who can deliver the future on a silver platter. He thinks he has the proprietary AI software on his encrypted hard drive. He thinks he can sell 5 years of my intellectual labor to recoup his losses and fund the lavish life he promised Stephanie. But Tyler made the fatal mistake of assuming I was just a supporting character in his narrative, a silent partner who didn't understand the value of her own work. He forgot that while he was at galas and networking events, I was the one who wrote every single line of that code. I didn't just drain the accounts before he left for the airport. I performed a surgical extraction of the system's soul. In the tech world, we call it a logic bomb, but this was more personal. I removed the master key, the core kernel that allows the AI to interface with any external hardware. Without it, the software isn't a revolutionary tool. It is a digital paperweight. It is a brick. I can picture the scene in that sterile 61st floor office, the sleek mahogany table, the cold, assessing eyes of men who do not tolerate failure or excuses. Tyler opens his laptop with a practiced flourish, his smile bright and confident, masking the absolute panic screaming inside his head. He begins his pitch, talking about synergy and global disruption, promising them a new era of predictive processing. He leans in, looking them in the eye, and hits the execute button for the demo. The screen doesn't glow with the sophisticated interface I spent thousands of hours perfecting. It doesn't show the seamless flow of data points and neural pathways. Instead, a harsh, blood-red window pops up in the center of the display. It shows one simple clinical message: critical failure. Kernel missing. Tyler's smile will freeze. His blood will turn to liquid nitrogen. He will try to refresh the page, to reboot the system, to laugh it off as a minor technical glitch caused by the international flight. But the men in that room will recognize the truth immediately. He hasn't just brought them an incomplete product, he has attempted to sell them something he doesn't actually possess. In Palo Alto, this might be viewed as a failed startup attempt. But in Singapore, when you are dealing with this specific tier of private investors, it is called fraud. By pitching a product that is non-functional and claiming full ownership of stolen IP, Tyler has just crossed a legal line he cannot uncross. In Singapore, the Commercial Affairs Department doesn't play around with investment fraud. By taking a deposit under the pretense of owning functional, proprietary tech while knowing the master key was gone, Tyler had triggered a criminal investigation for cheating under Section 420 of the Penal Code. He didn't just lose his wife and his savings today. He has committed a criminal act against people who do not use traditional courtrooms to settle their grievances. He thinks he can eventually gaslight me into providing the master key, but he is about to find out that once the system reboots without the architect, there is no way back in. This wasn't just revenge, it was a total system shutdown. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the silent pulse of my phone on the nightstand feels like a seismic event. I don't startle. I've been awake, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Palo Alto condo, watching the fog roll over the Bay Bridge. I pick up the device and see the FaceTime request. The caller ID says Tyler. I accept the call and the screen flickers to life, revealing a man I no longer recognize. Tyler is sitting on the edge of a bed in a hotel room that smells of stale air and desperation. The golden boy of Silicon Valley is gone. His tailored suit is wrinkled, his hair is a chaotic mess, and his eyes are bloodshot and swollen from crying. Behind him, I see a room that is small and utilitarian, a stark contrast to the glass-walled penthouse he had described in his exit strategy files. Stephanie is nowhere to be seen. I realized then that Stephanie was a high-maintenance luxury he could only afford when he had my capital. The moment the account balance hit 0.00, she likely calculated the risk-to-reward ratio and realized Tyler was no longer a viable investment. Olivia, he sobs, his voice cracking with a raw, jagged terror. Please, you have to listen to me. They're coming for me. The investors, they think I lied to them. They think I tried to scam them. I watch him with the clinical detachment of a programmer reviewing a terminal error. I don't feel the pull of his tears. I don't feel the urge to comfort him. I see his situation for what it truly is, the power illusion of the empty wallet. For years, I watched Tyler walk through life with an effortless confidence that people mistook for inherent power. But standing here now, I understand that his charisma was never a part of who he was. It was simply a reflection of what he had. His authority, his influence, and even his perceived genius were all assets he had rented using my salary and my intellectual labor as collateral. He was a shell company with a prestigious logo, and I was the actual infrastructure holding it upright. Now that I have withdrawn my support, the shell has collapsed because he has no internal value to sustain it. We built this together, Olivia, he pleads, leaning closer to the camera, his face distorted by the lens. Every night we spent talking about the future, the patent, the dream. You can't just destroy me like this. I need the master key. Just send me the patch. I'll give you back the money. I'll give you anything you want. Just please don't let them take me. It is a masterful performance of the victim protocol, but he is pitching to the wrong audience. I think about the forged signatures Marcus found. I think about the secret lease signed 6 months ago. I think about the 3 years I spent without a vacation so he could have the liquidity to look successful. I lean in toward my own reflection in the glass window, I didn't break the code, Tyler, I say, my voice steady and devoid of the heat he's expecting. The software is exactly what it was always going to be. I didn't introduce a bug. I just removed the one part that actually made the entire system work me. He stares at me, his mouth opening and closing as the realization finally hits him. He was never the visionary. He was just the interface. And without the core architect, the interface is useless. Goodbye, Tyler, I say. I don't wait for his response. I don't wait to see the investors knock on his door. I simply hit the red end call button. The screen goes black. I put the phone face down on the marble counter and turn back to the window. The sun is starting to rise over the bay, and for the first time in 5 years, the air in this condo finally feels clean. The legal aftermath was as cold and precise as the code I had once written in the shadows. The legal battle wasn't won overnight. It took 14 months of grueling discovery and forensic accounting. But the exit strategy folder I'd recovered became the smoking gun. In the eyes of a California judge, Tyler's fraudulent intent was so clear that the usual 50-over-50 split was off the table. The judge ruled that the $1,300,964.34 I had transferred was not a theft, but a rightful distribution of marital assets and years of unpaid back pay for my primary role in the company's development. I walked away with full ownership of the AI patent, the soul of the architecture I had built. Tyler's world, meanwhile, continued its terminal descent. The authorities in Singapore moved forward with fraud charges, and without my capital or my code, he had nothing left to trade for his freedom. Stephanie vanished the moment the luxury penthouse became a legal liability, proving that her loyalty, much like Tyler's success, was a commodity that could not be sustained on a zero balance. He is now facing a future defined by courtrooms and debt, a direct consequence of treating a partner like legacy code to be discarded. I used the capital to launch the Founder's Shield, an incubator designed specifically for female developers who have been marginalized or silenced within their own firms. I am no longer the silent architect in the hoodie. I am the CEO of my own vision. I stand at my new desk overlooking a different part of the city. I open my cloud drive one last time. I find the folder simply titled Tyler. I don't feel anger. I don't feel regret. I just see a block of corrupted data that no longer serves a purpose. I hit delete. This letter is for those of you who are currently listening from the edge, feeling like a secondary character in your own life. To those who have been told they are lucky to be included while they do all the heavy lifting in silence, realize that you are the one maintaining the system's structural integrity. You are not the accessory, you are the foundation. You are the architect. You are the one who writes the core logic of your reality. Do not let someone else put their logo on your labor. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop providing the patch for someone else's broken character. Reboot the system on your own terms. If this story reminded you that you are the architect of your own life, hit that share button. Subscribe for more stories of justice. See you in the next one.